What's up YouTube, Daryl here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Yubel, and this is going to be post-legacy destruction. Now, as a disclaimer, I am still currently waiting on my free Nightmare Thrones to appear, but I thought I'd bring you this update profile to show you exactly what a build currently looks like, talk you through some of the changes that I'm looking to make after a bit more testing, and I'll also show you a demo side deck as well, so you have everything you need to know in order to put this deck together. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, let's get started with, of course, the main card being Yubel. Now, I feel that one is more than enough. You can play a second one, and the reason you would do that is it gives you the ability in order to... But you've got to be careful with the brand new card of the Valdreth, when I find it, or the Valdrus. You've got to be very careful if you lock a Yubel under it as a material, because then it means that you are forced to use the effect first to detach, and then you have it in rotation that you can bring it back from the graveyard. Whereas if you play a second Yubel, you do have a little bit more consistency in order to get a second one there, overlay one of them and leave another one floating around, but it really does come down to your personal preference and play style. We've then, of course, got the one Terra Incarnate. Now, until we get Phantom of Yubel, when I get Phantom of Yubel, or we get Phantom of Yubel in general, that's when I'll consider playing the Nightmare. But for now, I feel that one-on-one is more than enough, especially with Throne. Like, the idea is you're going to float a Spirit into a Terra Incarnate and a Yubel all in one, and you've got instant link fodder to go into your Yama plays and everything else. Speaking of, we are playing Free Spirit. This card's just such an amazing addition to the deck. I'm so glad it's only a super rare, because if there's anything higher, it would have been a pain in the backside to get. But it does mean that in the future tins, when these are reprinted, I'm really hoping that these, plus, the Lotus, or at the very least, Nightmare Pain, are going to get upgrades into secret rares. Speaking of which, free Samsara the Lotus is always pretty straightforward and simple. I wouldn't really cut it down. You do need to see it. Like, at the end of the day, if I'm seeing this, any combination of this, Throne, and or the Sacred Beast, I'm in a good position. So I want to max out on this one. I would rather see Samsara the Lotus than just Dark Beckoning Beast, but that's my personal preference, because I would rather go through the Yubel route than try and go down into the Unchained route. But it is what it is. And then, of course, we've got one of the brand new gruesome Grave Squimmer. Now, I tried this at 2, I tried it at 3 initially, cut it down to 2, and then I feel that 1 is more than enough. 2 can get a little bit bricky. Yes, it's nice to hard open one, because then it means when you use your Nightmare Pain to search out a card, you're not always going for the Squimmer, which is quite nice. But in this particular build, because, preview, I am playing the Thunder Dragon engine in the deck as well, it can get a little bit cloggy. So it's kind of why I decided to go with the 1 and search it when I need it and when I want it, rather than anything else. Now, through more and more testing, that might change and I might want to bump it up to 2, but I feel that 1 just works out perfectly fine for me. There is another engine that I'm about to show you, and I know I'm going to get a lot of stick for this one, but we're playing 3 Dark Beckoning Beast and 1 Opening Spirit Gates. Now, I know instantly people are going to hate this, but the reason I've gone with 1 is I hate the card. I don't hate the card in general. What I mean is I hate opening this card. When I was playing a 3 and a 2, I constantly kept seeing Opening the Spirit Gates, but no Dark Beckoning. And that's when it really, really sucks, because if you see Opening the Spirit Gates with no start or anything else, it's terrible. Because you activate Opening, you search out a Dark Beckoning, you normal Dark Beckoning, you search out another gate. It's like, okay, cool. All I've managed to gain there is the free discard fodder off of the Opening Spirit Gates if I can get a card to the graveyard. If I can get a monster that I want to bring back from the graveyard, like I need to get Spirit to the graveyard, and even then you'd want to discard the Spirit rather than the additional Opening of Spirit Gates. So the way that I've kind of seen it is I'm perfectly happy with a 3-on-1 ratio. I want to see Dark Beckoning Beast. It's one of the best starts in the entire deck. Like, see this, I get a second copy that helps me play through the Nibiru, especially with this most recent ban list. Like, Nibiru is going to be a massive threat. And if you're trying to build this board without Nibiru protection, you are dicing with a loss right there. Like, if they have Nibiru, it will be GG. If they don't have a Nibiru, then of course you're risking your luck. Now, obviously, this will all change when we get Phantom of Yubel. That's just like a complete game changer. Changes so much for the deck. The fact that it makes the opponent's card effect become something else means that it can play around unaffected monsters, because you're not affecting the monster, you're affecting something else. It's like a weird little loophole, which is great for the deck. Plus, it gives you the ability to protect from the Nibiru. It does take away more reliance off of the Valdreth as well, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because I feel that when you're making your combos, like I said, you're locking a Spirit and a Yubel under it. And when you're doing it, you're usually doing this as like one of the last summons you make. So it's not as good as an early doors protection off of the back of the Dark Beckoning Beast or a Phantom of Yubel from Nibiru. It'll be one of the ones that if you can add to your end board a Phantom of Yubel and the Valdras, great. You've got an Omni Negate and a Monster Negate, or a Monster Switch effect, technically. So right now, I feel that we have to play a little bit more reserved. I can't wait for Phantom of Yubel to be confirmed, but even then, I still feel you need to go for your first route of play, which will be your protection, which will be the Djinn Buster. I'll show you that as well. I've shown you the combos for those. I'll put the link to the description below so you have everything in one go. And then the other engine I am playing, which I'm highly considering cutting as well, is the Thunder Dragon engine. This is just a win more engine. It's literally all it is. So the reason that we play this in here is for the pure fact that if you do open up your combo, which is like a 2-card combo, you get access to your Mature Chronicle. Mature Chronicle says when it has 3 counters on it, that you get to banish 1 card from the deck. In doing so, you banish your Thunder Dragon Dark. On top of that, in doing so, you're then able to search out a Thunder Dragon Hawk, discard the Hawk, summon back your Dark, tribute the Dark off and go into a Colossus. So you're ideally ending your board on something like a Djinn Buster, a Valdrath, a Colossus, and then a Rage. So which is an insanely powerful board to break. But I feel at that point when you're doing it, just adding the Colossus is the cherry on the top and it's not really a necessity. If I was to take these cards out, I would definitely be looking at playing... probably putting in Fenrir, because I think Fenrir can be really, really good in the battle phase up against TENPAI. It can also be really good in the mirror match as well, being able to banish Nightmare Pain face down and everything else you play. There's also another card that I would adapt when I'm playing this version of the deck, and the reason for that is, I'm just going to skip ahead to it, is, and I forgot to change them out, but I would highly tell you lot to consider if you are playing the Thunder Dragon engine to play Allure of Darkness. Now the reason you would play Allure of Darkness instead of Pot of Prosperity is because if you hard open more so this than this, but if you hard open this, the combo sucks because you can't get this banished from the deck and you can't get it back to the deck. Whereas if you were playing Allure of Darkness, if you open up this with Allure, you activate Allure, banish this, and you get the combo anyway. So it gives you more consistency to utilize the Thunder Dragon cards if you do hard open them. But I feel the biggest issue with this one is that I tried to cut a brick in the form of a second, or like really tighten down the excess cards in the form of the second gates, and I just added in these. So I don't think they're a necessity. I feel they can very easily come out. And if I'm going to a more competitive event, you could very easily side them out or take them out because there's no guarantee you're going to go first. But the idea with Yubel is you're trying to push for an OTK. And if you're not pushing for the OTK, like obviously you ideally want to be going first and set up complete protection and then get them to OTK themselves. Which is the best thing about Yubel is it's like a direct counter to TENPAI, which is really, really funny. But keep in mind that TENPAI, they won't take the battle damage off of Nightmare Pain, but if you have Yubel, they will take the burn damage, which is really important. So in this version, I've got Pot of Prosperity, but really these should be Allure of Darknesses, just as a note. The other card that I'm playing for the Unchained engine is the one Shavara. Now, I know you can play the Trap card. I know you can also play Shayama as well. Again, I was trying to cut down all of the unnecessary cards. And what I mean by that is if I open up Shavara, okay, cool, I can still make some plays. But if I open up the Trap card, it sucks. If I open up Shayama, it sucks. It sucks to open up Shayama if you don't have access to the gates. And what I was really doing, the more and more I was testing this, like initially before I put this build together, I was dead set on Shayama. I was like, Shayama is the best thing to discard off of the Spirit Gates. It gives you so much advantage. And then the more and more I tested it, I was like, actually, it's a little bit slower than Shavara. Shavara is better. It does give you a little bit of protection from being able to dodge targeted effects. The fact that I don't need to get it to the graveyard to then use this effect to bring back and pop means that I've got this card in the hand that as soon as I search it off of Yama, as long as I can get a Spirit to the board, which is incredibly easy with the Grave Squirmer, I'm in such a better position to keep popping, floating and everything else. So this I'm completely happy with. I feel you do need to be very, very careful. Like you need to be able to get access to your Yubel lines without clogging down and everything else. That being said, for the hand traps, we are playing 3 different hand traps. So I've got Nibiru. I just feel that Nibiru could be the hand trap of the format. If this is irrelevant at your local environment or people are playing around it or changing it or anything like that, then by all means you take it out. This element of the deck is down to the environment you're taking it to. If the hand trap that you are choosing to play is less effective, then make sure you're changing it for a card that is more effective, or you're changing it for a board breaker that is more effective. Speaking of which, triple Ash Blossom and then triple Infinite Impermanence. Pretty straightforward and simple on that one. Now, the Pierre de la Resistance, the best new card that this deck has received is triple Nightmare Throne. And I'm just going to show you the terraforming now as well, so you can say that this is important. It's a 4th copy of this card. That's why you are playing it. Now, unfortunately, this does refer to Yubel as monsters in general, so like Terra Incarnate, Nightmare, and Yubel, not Yubel directly as the individual card. So it can't be searched for Nightmare Pain, which is a big pain. But the idea behind Nightmare Throne, and the reason this is so hyped right now, is because Yubel is being considered as being the anti-meta towards TENPAI if it kicks off. Phantom of Yubel is around the corner, we hope, fingers crossed, and the deck just gets even better and better. So when this is activated, you take a Fiend monster with 0/0, so the best thing about this is it can be put into any Fiend deck. DDDs, it can be put in Sacred Beast, because it just searches out a Fiend monster with 0/0, and straight away you have a nice little engine just by searching out a Dark Beckoning Beast to get your combos going. So technically with Nightmare Throne, you are playing 6 copies of Samsara D Lotus and 6 copies of Sacred Beast. Add in a 7th when you consider Terraforming as well, and if you wanted to go even deeper, you could play Set Rotation and an additional field spell as well. Currently, pre-order prices on this were £20. I've seen them going for between £15 and £20 themselves. Quarter Centuries are like 140 a copy, which is absolutely insane, but the card is incredibly crap for the deck. If you don't have access to them yet, the next best and cheapest alternative will be Yubel. It's not ideal because it doesn't give you that float into your Terra Incarnate as easily. It doesn't give you, like, it doesn't cost you half your life points, which is a big issue as well. But if you can upgrade into Nightmare Thrones, that's one you want to go for. But if you're like, I'm completely strapped on cash, I've literally just paid 70 quid to get a Yubel core, what can I play instead of Nightmare Throne? Well, the answer is Yubel. Then the MVP of this entire deck is Nightmare Pain. This card is insane. This is what is going to win you most, if not all, of your duels. So this one, again, forces your opponent to attack Yubels. And the best thing about this, and this is something I learned recently, is because this one forces you to attack Yubels, they can't skip their battle phase. Whereas if a card says they must attack where able, but they don't force you to attack a specific monster themselves, they can technically skip their battle phase. On top of that, obviously destroying a card, search out your Grey Scrimmer, everything else. It's just so good. The best board breaker for this entire deck is Super Poly. We have a Super Poly target that lets you use a Yubel monster and then as many monsters as you want. What's not to love about that? It provides you with burn damage as well. Now, even if you're not going for that direct board clear as well, you also have the ability to get into Mud Dragon and Garuras. So this is one of your most ideal board breaking cards around. You do need to be able to play a balance of go first cards and go second cards because you cannot always guarantee to go first. And when you are guaranteed to go first or second, that's when your side deck's going to put in the work. The last 3 cards are just single one-off cards. So you've got the 1 for 1, the 1 Called by the Grave, and the 1 Eternal Favourite. The reason we're only playing the 1 Eternal Favourite is because we're not going to be searching it out as consistently as we want it to be. When you are trying to build off your end of the combo board, unless you are playing a control version of this build, which will involve a card in the side deck that I'll show you a little bit later on, then you're going to be able to search out your Chronicle. If you're going to go for the Thunder Dragon plays, you're mainly going to go for your Swimmer. Like, keeping in mind, the normal play of this deck was always going to be Spirit, Nightmare Throne, Pop Spirit, search out Eternal Favourite. Great success. Now, rather than searching out Eternal Favourite off the back of that, you're searching out your Grey Scrimmer so you can push your combo that little bit further. Again, if you want to take it back a step and you want to be more defensive, then of course you would go for double Eternal Favourite, and that's where I'd say play a more control-focused build. You would then not have the reliance on the Unchained cards, and again that is understandable considering Rage is like £25 to £30 a copy and Yama is about £15 to £20 a copy, so straight away those 3 cards are starting to build up your cost, whereas you can switch this to a control build, highlight your consistency with Nightmare Throne, and then utilise more control aspects. So that's it for the entire main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. So for the fusion monsters, of course, we are playing 2 Yubel the Loving Defender. I feel that this could very arguably be put down to 1 when we do get Phantom of Yubel, just because the Phantom is so good and it lets you recycle these as well. We are playing the 1 Thunder Dragon Colossus because we are playing the Thunder Dragon engine. If you're not going to be playing it, you can cut this out completely. I'm going to be showing you 16 cards in this extra deck anyway, because at the end of the extra deck, there'll be an either or option. But of course, if you don't want to play the Thunder Dragon engine, you can take this out. Like I said, this is just one of them ones where it's a win more option. Like if you're able to end your board with the ability to either Super Poly your opponent's board or go a Rage into an SP Little Knight backed up by a Valdrath and a Colossus, it's near enough GG. For the generic Super Poly targets, of course, you've got your Mud Dragon and your Garura. For the XYZs, we've got the number 65 Gym Buster that you make off of 2 of your Sacred Beasts, and this is how you get your protection from Nib before you get into your 5 summons, which is really, really important. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, this is the ability that if you do get close to time, especially with this deck being a little bit of a slower deck, but ultimately it's quite fast as well because it can help your opponent OTK themselves, you do have Gustav Max to nuke the board. There is the ability to rank this up into the train 1 above it as well if you wanted to, the Yubel, but honestly the space is a little bit tight in the extra deck and I feel that playing a 1 is more than enough. Muckrock of the Underworld. Now this, of course, a lot of people were utilising it previously to this, but I feel we're past that point now. Every time I've tested this, I've only gone into Muckracker as it was a generic link too. I've never really wanted or needed to use its discard effect. Yes, the discard effect can come up, but it's one of them ones, again, that if you're going to be making, and we're just going to go back to it, if you're going to be making your Valdreth, the only card you really want to be bringing back off the Muckracker would be a Spirit or ideally a Yubel, so that you can then bring back a Samsara D Lotus in the end phase and go from there. But more times than not, they're going to be locked under the Valdras. So that's when you're kind of getting a bit more confliction that Muckracker isn't bringing back as good of a target as it possibly could be. Now, I'm not saying don't play Muckracker, obviously still play it, but I do feel that there is a very nice spicy option that I'm going to show you in a second, which is going to give you a bit more defense than a lot of people are considering. So we've got the one Salamander Almirage. This is just if you open up the Dark Beckoning Beast, you can turn that into an Almirage, discard a card, bring back the Dark Beckoning Beast, and then that unlocks your plays to get into something like an SP Little Knight. So the spicy inclusion that I've considered is Barricade Borg Blocker. Now for those of you that are unfamiliar with this card and the reason why this is so good, you get to discard one card during the end phase of this turn, add a continuous or a field spell from your grave to the hand. So this lets you add back the Nightmare Throne so you can activate it again. If that wasn't enough, once per face-up spells you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So where they're trying to constantly out the Nightmare Pain because that is your main win con, if they can't destroy that and they can't out that as easily as they might want to try and do because you're a Barricade Blow Blocker, it will cause them so many more issues. It means they have to go to battle phase, clear off the Barricade Blow Blocker, which they can't do because they're all going to be forced to attack Yubel, which means not on top of that, not only are your monsters slightly protected, but it also means that your throne can't be got rid of, plus your face-up spells in the form of the gates can't be stopped, your Mature Chronicle can't get cleared off, and neither can your Nightmare Pain, which is the most important one. Then of course you've got your Unchained Engine in the one Rage and the one Yama, and then the final slot is an either or option on this one because they're pretty much going to both lead into the same thing. You've got the Relinquish Anima, which is great for going second, steal a card, give it an attack boost, and then link it off to go into an SP Little Knight, or of course you're going to go for a the Dark Charmer, which will pretty much do the exact same thing. Bring a Dark back from your opponent's graveyard, link off, go into an SP Little Knight. So either or on these two, or if you're not playing the Fun Dragon Engine, you wouldn't play that and you'd play both of these. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now it's time to show you the side deck. So for the side deck, I've gone with the one Geist Grinder Golem. You don't really need to be worrying about it. It's just one of the ones that I thought was a really kind of cool card. But what I do like about this is I feel that one card that can really hurt Yubel is an evenly matched. And a lot of people will forget about this. But what this is really good is if you can get this in your plays with the Spirit of Yubel, you use Spirit of Yubel, you give them the Geist Grinder, and then straight away you don't need to worry about Lightning Storms, you don't need to worry about Evenlies, which is really, really important. Yes, you do give them free fodder for a send off of the back of something like Forbidden Droplet, but if that isn't enough, you can also use Geist Grinder if your opponent's trying to be a little bit smart and try not to put a monster on their board so you can't OTK them. You can just play the Geist Grinder Golem combo and give them the Geist Grinder and then attack into it, gain life points, and they kill themselves, basically. Then, of course, for the hand traps, we've got triple Drown Lockbird followed up by triple D-Shifter. I feel that if you are going to side out or take less reliance on your your Unchained Engine, then that's the biggest clash with D-Shifter. Yes, of course, the Grave Scrimmer does clash with D-Shifter as well, but the idea is that when you're activating D-Shifter and siding it in, you're doing it in a matchup where they auto-lose or really do struggle without their graveyard. So Voiceless Voice can still play, but that will cause them a couple of issues. You can then also hit the Snake Eyes strategy as well. So if they go first, you hit them with a D-Shifter, they lose their entire graveyard, you can still build your board anyway, and as long as they've put one monster on the board, you can pretty much push for an OTK or push for a decent chunk of damage. Then we've got Cosmic Cyclones, Duster, and Storms. Pretty standard on this one as well. Just being able to deal with back row that your opponent might set up, front row that your opponent might set up, and then any kind of quick play or any kind of continuous that they might want to throw up. Obviously, Cosmic is great in the mirror match as well because then it does give you the way that if your opponent is also using Barricade Ball Blocker, you can Cosmic and still get rid of the Nightmare Pain, which is going to give you great success. But like I said, that's one thing that I think is missing is Fenrir. I still feel that Fenrir could be a great addition. It's just trying to find the space in the main deck. That being said, if I am facing up against Fenrir or, of course, those pesky TENPAIs, what additional card am I going to play? And the answer to that is Skill Drain. So the reason that Skill Drain is so good, now this came from, and apologies for this one, it was on a Team Sam video and they got top 64 or top 16, I believe, at an American YCS. They were using Skill Drain and I thought it was a genius bit of idea because what I liked about Skill Drain is it caused your opponent a lot of issues. Yeah, you might think it causes you issues, and even someone was like, oh, if someone flips Skill Drain's new, it's GG. It's like, it's not. Actually, Skill Drain with Nightmare Pain is GG to my opponent, not to me. And the reason for that is, even if I have Yubel up on the board, when I'm going to find it. So right at the start. So if I have Yubel on the board, and I've got Nightmare Pain, my opponent is forced to attack Yubel. I flip Skill Drain because they're playing, let's say, TENPAI. So they want to be able to attack as many times as they possibly want, but they have to attack Yubel. And as long as they're still getting attacks through, they're not going to take any damage and everything else. But if I'm going to flip a Skill Drain on them, they are just weak little monsters. Yes, my Yubel is also a weak monster, but if they attack Yubel, I won't take any damage. They will take the damage I would take. Yubel gets destroyed and floats into a Terror Incarnate. They then have to attack the Terror Incarnate. And again, yes, Terror Incarnate would die, get destroyed, but then it could float into an Unending Nightmare, which is something where you might want to consider the Nightmare in here instead of the Geist Grinder Golem. But again, they've had to go through 2 attacks. The best one is if you start off with the Spirit of Yubel, because you start with Spirit of Yubel, that gets destroyed, they take the damage, you go into Yubel. That gets destroyed, they take the damage, you go into Terror Incarnate. They attack the Terror Incarnate, they take the damage, and then it goes to the next one. Now, obviously, if they don't have their quick effects to Synchro Summon and they're under Skill Drain, they would have taken all that damage and you're still able to play. You've also got to remember that the Samsara D Lotus tributes as cost, so you can still use Samsara D Lotus under Skill Drain. The only thing you would lose under Skill Drain would, of course, be your Unchained monsters on the field, and you would also lose your Spirit of Yubel effect as well. But if you have the ability to tribute off when they activate, so for example, Spirit of Yubel summons, triggers the effect, chain Super Poly to clear it off the board, it will resolve in the graveyard, meaning that Skill Drain doesn't phase it, and you still get everything you need. It's a bit of risk of reward, but the idea was if my opponent ever played a card that would out my board, more times than not, it could very well be a monster that's going to be able to try and do that. Something like a Black Rose Dragon. And again, yes, they're unaffected by my activated effects, but Skill Drain doesn't activate, it just negates the entire board. So if they try to activate Black Rose Dragon to nuke the board, I can still chain Skill Drain, which would then negate that, and then nothing gets destroyed, and I still have my entire board that they are then forced to attack my Yubel. So it gives you everything you need. I still think it's a great little card going first if you need it, and I do feel that it allows you to change up the strategy as well. And quite like D-Shifter, it's one of them cards that you will put into the main deck when it's going to seriously damage your opponent a heck of a lot more than damaging you. So, in summary, I'm still playing around with the Thunder Dragon bit of the deck. I'm not 100% sold on it. I do feel that it's just a win more option. It's one of the ones where it's like, eh, cool, I can get that, but do I really, really, really need it? Nightmare Throne is a great card. At the moment at £15, they're definitely worth picking up in my opinion. Yes, they might dip a little bit, but if you can find them at £15, just get your play sets. Like less than 50 quid, you've got everything you need to. And we know for damn sure well that when Phantom of Yubel gets confirmed, they're probably going to go up in price. Because I'm pretty sure as well, with Nightmare Throne, you could probably play a small Yubel engine. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd literally just popped into my head. But yeah, that could then give any deck a bit of a negate because they can just spin back the stuff they don't need anymore. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll link the combo video in the description below so you can see all of that in one go as well. I'll bring you another update once I have the ability to as well, or once I've got my Nightmare Thrones. And I am looking to try and take this to a locals and give it a run out to see how it does against TENPAIs. I really do want to see how that gets matched up. And obviously in like the Melodious matchup as well. I think this deck has mass success against tower cards that don't really need to negate and stuff, but you still need to be a little bit careful with everything that gets thrown at you as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.